Blackology for cultural autonomy. Blackology for cultural autonomy. This edutainment is dedicated to the philosophy, beliefs, and the spirit of Malcolm X. Brother Malcolm educated us on the economic, political, cultural philosophies, which inspired the intellectual philosophy of Black African culture in the science of Blackology. This is a cultural therapy for Black African culture and its people. Malcolm educated Black people on how we should see our future and how we should be conscious of our future. Malcolm left a blueprint to follow. 1. Introduction. Brothers and sisters and philanthropy. I am also aware that there are some enemies. We have to be kidding ourselves to think that in these times there are no enemies. It is time that we must realize the need for a cultural science. It is time that we talk about the development of our culture, since this is one of the basic needs of our future. I would like to clarify something that is personal about my personal position. I am a believer in the Creator God Almighty. My spiritual attainment is Black African spirituality. Like all spirituality, it is based on the belief in one God, the Creator of all things, the all-wise, all-knowing, omnipotent, omnipresent God, the Creator of the universe. This spirituality is from the Black African experience, or the Black African culture, from a Blackological perspective. It governs my spiritual connection with the Creator. I believe that the Black man, like all men, is a child of God, made in His image and His likeness, and should be respected as such. I do not believe that one spirituality is any better than the next. I believe that we all praise God as our ultimate faith. My spirituality is still my personal choice. In my spirituality, I still honor and respect Black African traditional religions and recognize colonial religions for what they have done to make Black people what they are today. I still give credit to Dr. C.O. McDaniel, Dr. Jacob Prince, Sean Taylor Steele, Mrs. Annie Mae Earls, my foster parents, Elizabeth and George Brooks, Sr., my grandfather, Eddie Cross Sr., Minister Louis Farrakhan, Alvin Walker, Dr. Amos Muhammad Khalid Salih, for what they have done to teach me what I know and what I am. I would also like to thank and give love to my mother and father, Eddie Cross Jr. and Ruthie A. Cross. At the present time, I am president and founder of the Blackology Research and Development Institute, located at 7611 Mountain View Way, Landover, Maryland, in Prince George County, near Washington, D.C. As we realize Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X were ministers, a talent and gift which God gave these brothers and sisters. I am a Blackologist, a cultural scientist. Even though Malcolm and Martin were ministers, they were known for their involvement in the civil and human rights struggle. Even though I am a Black scholar, I am first of all a scientist, a Blackological cultural scientist, or a Blackologist. My talent and gift is Blackology. I am here to develop the culture scientifically. I believe that Black culture has scientific knowledge. I believe our methods of solving the problems cultivate black culture and its people must be scientific or psychological means. What I am saying is that we must utilize the methods of our ancestors, grandparents, mamas and baba's, brothers and sisters who have paved the way for black people. It is necessary that we turn back to our culture, to our own culture, in order to develop a future for our people. We must be able to stand on our own in order to make contributions as a black culture. We must have our own cultural science. We can never be number one with anyone else until we become number one with ourselves. We must utilize the science of blackology as a means of cultural autonomy. Black African spirituality is my spiritual discipline, but my spirituality is my personal choice. It governs my personal life and morals. My spiritual philosophy is between me and God, whom I believe in, just as the religious philosophies of other people is between them and God. According to Malcolm X, it is best this way. If we start out discussing our religions, we would have too many differences from the start, and we would never get together. So today, although Black African spirituality is my spiritual philosophy, my political, economic, cultural, intellectual philosophy is psychological. As I said, according to Malcolm X, if we bring up religion, we will have differences, arguments. We will never get together. But if we keep our religion at home, keep our religion between us and our God, that when we talk about solutions to the problems facing black culture, we have a struggle that is common to all black people. The need for cultural autonomy is common to all black people. Political, economic, and cultural, intellectual philosophies. A political philosophy of blackology only means that black people to control the politicians in their culture. We must not allow for black politicians who only want to make a dollar lead us astray. We must make political decisions that will advance our black culture. We must stop being colorblind or non-blackological voters. We must not vote for anyone who is not from our culture blindly. We must not be fooled by blacks who are bought and paid for by other cultures. We must educate and make our own political leaders who are new and be obligated to the black culture. The political philosophy of blackology only means that blacks are going to live in the black culture. We must understand the politics of our culture. We must understand the politics it's supposed to produce. We must know what politics plays in our lives. Until we become culturally mature, we will always be misled, deceived, or maneuvered. We must educate ourselves so that we will not be supporters of someone who does not have the good of our culture at heart. The political philosophy of blackology means we have to carry on programs of re-education, a political program to open our eyes, to make us become more politically conscious and mature. Whether we get ready to cast our ballots, these ballots will be cast for a black man of the culture, a black man who has the good of the culture at heart, or a black woman of the culture, or a black woman who has the good of the culture at heart. The economic philosophy. The economic philosophy of blackology means that we own, operate, and control the economy of our culture in which we live. We will never find black reparations in the white culture. The white culture will not patronize this idea. They are not wrong. They are looking out for their own culture. It is black people who must learn to look out for their own culture. Other ethnics do not let anyone control the economy of their culture. Blacks must not allow education, housing, and the jobs of their culture. We as black people must realize the necessity of controlling the businesses in our culture. We must understand and acknowledge that scientifically we must not accept integration as a means of equality. Integration renders a people helpless and dependent. This is not progressive or productive thinking. Psychologically speaking, we must have our own culture. Everyone deserves a chance to make it on their own. We cannot make it as individuals and independent persons. We need a culture to survive. The economic philosophy of blackology only means we have to become involved in a cultural economic program of re-education to educate black people on the importance of knowing that when you take the dollar out of your culture, the culture in which you spend the money becomes richer and richer. The culture in which you take the money out becomes poorer and poorer. The culture out of which you take your money becomes poorer and poorer. Black people who have been misled and misguided are breaking their backs, taking their money to spend it in other cultures. The cultures are becoming richer and richer, and the black culture has become poorer and poorer. What happens then is the culture in which you become a slum. The culture in which you live becomes a slum. The conditions become run down. The black people complain about poor housing and a rundown culture. Why? You will run it down yourself when you take the dollar out. The black culture is in a double trap. Not only when black people try to spend their money in the culture they live, the many stores in the culture, in the black culture, is owned by other ethnics. Black businessmen must learn to set up stores in the black culture. The black man who controls the stores in the black culture does not live in our culture. So when black people try to spend our money in the culture in which we live, we are in a double trap. We are spending it with a man when the sun goes down, takes that money into another culture, and as long as black people do not develop their own culture, they will be in a double trap. Any way that blacks go that is not directed towards the redevelopment of black culture is a trap. Every time other cultures come up with solutions, these solutions are just more traps. The political, economic philosophy of blackology is a method of science that we must use to develop the black culture. The economic philosophy of blackology shows black people the necessity of opening up small businesses to develop and expand into larger businesses. All black business started out small. We were to business business. Black people must dedicate their time to their culture. We must be willing to invest our time in our culture in order to make it equal to other cultures. It is our culture. It is not what it should be. It is because we have to make it what it should be. If the black culture is going to be equal, it will be because of what we do. The time that we spend economically, politically, and culturally with other cultures can be spent with our own. You and I have to make a start. And the best place to make a start is right in the culture we live in. See, cultural philosophy. Black people have to be re-educated on the importance of supporting black culture and made aware of the importance of developing their culture. Once black people are educated on their culture, they can own and operate the schools in their own culture. We will be doing what is necessary for the redevelopment of our culture. What we will be doing is developing a situation where we will be able to create employment for the people of the culture. Once you can create employment in the culture where you live, it will eliminate the necessity of black people to have to protest, boycott, tickets for jobs cultures for jobs, we are in bad shape. When black people rely on other cultures for jobs, we place ourselves at a disadvantage. We must eliminate this slave mentality, dependency, and colonialism from the minds of our people. Brothers and sisters, it has not been my intention to discuss religion. We are going to forget religion. If we bring up religion, we will be in an argument. The best place to keep away from arguments and differences is to leave our religious between you and God. Because if it hasn't done anything for you, then what it has, you need to keep it to yourself. Whatever you bring up religion, you will be in an argument. Whether you are a Christian, a Muslim, a Buddhist, a Jewish, or Black African spirituality, we all have the same problem. The black culture must be redeveloped. The black culture has not been equal. Other ethnics do not dislike us because we're Christian, or Muslim, or Buddhist, or Jewish. They disrespect us because our culture is not equal. They do not disrespect us because of our religion. They disrespect us because our culture is not developed. The multitude is greater than the individual. We are all in the same boat. We suffer political oppression, economic exploitation, and cultural degradation. All other cultures disrespect us. The government has not been able to help us. They have failed. You cannot deny that. Anytime you live in the 21st century and your cultural philosophy has been ignored, you know the government has failed. Anytime your cultural philosophies and values are not implemented into the educational system in your community, you know the government has failed you. You must demand that the educational system in America implement the contributions of the black culture and black people. Must be controlled of these resources. So, black children will no longer have to face the atrocities like James Byrd in Texas and the Rule Organization in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The intellectual philosophy. The intellectual philosophy of blackology means that we own, operate, and control, and maintain the produce of our intellectual philosophy of blackology means that we own, operate, control, and maintain the products of our intellectuals of the black culture in which we live. We would never find blackological cultural science in a white culture. The white culture will not think of this science. They are not wrong. They are looking out for their own interdisciplinary science. It is the black scholars who must learn to look out for their autonomous studies. Other ethnics do not let anyone else control the intellectuals of their culture. Black scholars must not allow other ethnics to control the intellectual science of their culture. Black scholars must control the careers, intellectual studies, and entrepreneurial opportunities of their culture. We as black scholars must realize the necessity of controlling the intellectual entrepreneurial opportunities in our cultural economy. We must understand and acknowledge that scientifically we must accept integration as a strategy, not as a way of life. Integration renders the people helpless and dependent. This is not progressive or productive thinking. Psychologically speaking, we must have our own culture. We must control our culture. Everyone deserves a chance to make it on their own. We cannot make it as individuals and independent persons. We need a culture to survive. The intellectual philosophy of blackology only means that we have to become involved in a blackological, intellectual, cultural science education to educate black people and black scholars on the importance of knowing that when you send your black intellectuals out of the culture in which you live, the culture in which you send your intellectuals becomes intelligent and qualified. The culture in which you take your intellectuals out of becomes ignorant and ill-prepared. Black people who have been misled and misguided are breaking their backs, taking their intellectual children to other cultures, becoming wiser and intelligent. The black culture has become ignorant and lack qualification. What happens then is the culture in which you live becomes a slum, run down, and stagnant. The conditions become run down. The black people complain about a poor, run down, stagnant culture, while you were running down and stagnated yourself when you take the intellectual resources out. The black culture is in a double trap. Not only do black people try to send the intellectuals to school in their culture, the many institutions that are in the black culture are not teaching black African cultural autonomy. They are owned by other ethnics, and those that are not owned by other ethnics are teaching other cultures. Black African scholars must learn to set up autonomous studies in the black culture. The black man must control the intellectual careers in the black culture. So when black people try to send our intellectuals to the culture for education, we are not really doing so. When we send our children and ourselves to institutions, when they graduate, they are still the intellectual resources into other cultures. As long as black scholars do not develop their own cultural science, they will be trapped and double trapped. Any way that black scholars go that is not directed towards the development of blackological cultural science is a trap. Every time other cultures come up with solutions, these are just more traps. The intellectual philosophy of blackology is a method of science. The intellectual philosophy of blackology is a method of science that we must use to develop the black African culture. The intellectual philosophy of blackology shows black scholars the necessity of opening up small intellectual businesses to develop and expand into larger institutions. All HBCUs started out small and grew into bigger institutions. Black scholars must dedicate their time to their culture. We must be willing to invest our time in our culture in order to make it equal to other cultures. It is our culture. If it is not what it should be, it is because we have to make it what it should be. If black culture is going to be equal, it will be because of what we do. The time that we spend as intellectuals in our culture is the most important thing that we can do. The time that we spend as intellectuals in our careers and institution building in other cultures can be spent with our own. Black scholars have to make a start. And the best place to make a start is right in the culture we live. Time to start thinking. Black people in the year 2004 are still singing, "We shall overcome." It is time to stop singing and start thinking. This is part of what is wrong in the black culture. We do too much singing. Today is time to stop singing and start thinking. You cannot sing up on autonomy, but you can think up on autonomy. The Oriental people can sing, but singing did not get them cultural autonomy. Thinking got them cultural autonomy. The American government has failed us. The geological liberals have failed us. Once we begin to see that all these forces that have failed us, then we begin to turn to ourselves. It is time that we begin to think for ourselves. thinking is the most important thing that we can do. Thinking is our greatest resource. We need more self-help programs, a do-it-right now philosophy, a do-it-yourself philosophy. This is what psychology is. It is a scientific, psychological philosophy. This is what black people and the black culture need. The only way we are going to solve the problems is with blackological solutions. Before we can get blackological programs, we must have a philosophy that is operatively black. Blackology is a self-help philosophy that is operatively black. What is so good about blackology is that you can stay in whatever church you are in right now and accept blackology as your cultural science. You can stay in any civic organization and accept blackology as your cultural science. You can be an athlete and take blackology as your cultural science. You can be an atheist and take blackology as your cultural science. You can be a police officer and take blackology as your cultural science. You can be a teacher and take blackology as your cultural science. You can be a doctor, a lawyer. You can be whatever you want to be and take blackology as your cultural science. Blackology is a cultural science that will eliminate the necessity for the division and argument. If you are a black African, you should be thinking black. If you are black and are not thinking blackological at this late date, now it is time to start. Once you develop your science, you can change your thought pattern. Once you change your thought pattern, you can change your attitude. Once you change your attitude, you can change your behavior. Then you are thinking. Then you begin to be productive and creative. This is what a people of cultural economy will do. Blackology is the science of black African cultural economy. As long as you have an assimilated thought, you will be an inferior thought. As long as you think that old inferior assimilated thought, you will be some kind of second-class mentality. You will find yourself second class everywhere. As long as you think that inferior assimilated thought, you will never be equal. Training. According to Malcolm X, it is not so good to refer to your training as a means of being creative and productive. To say that you have been trained castrates you. It brings you down. Think about what goes with it. Think of the image of someone being trained. A miseducated person can be trained. An indoctrinated person can be trained. An integrated person can be trained. A culturally conditioned person can be trained. Any victim of white supremacy, racism, can be trained. A colonized person can be trained. An individual can be trained. An assimilated person can be trained. According to black scholars, Dr. Francis Wells and Dr. Millie Fuller, we have been affected in all 9 areas of our lives: education, economics, entertainment, law, politics, religion, labor, sex, and war. You and I have been trained long enough. It is time today for us to start doing some thinking and some creating to back it up. We must become organized culturally. When we look at other ethnics throughout the world, we find that their cultures are being colonized. They are being recognized as equals. They are not getting autonomy by being trained, but by utilizing the sciences of their culture. Being a common copy does not equality. Being a carbon copy does not give equality. Cultural autonomy is gained by the productive and creative morality of a people. We must utilize blackology as the scientific philosophy of our culture. When we look look at other ethnies throughout the world gaining autonomy, they are not gaining it through assimilation, second-class citizenship, and servitude. They have gained their autonomy through cultural revitalization. The black culture must be perpetuated by its people. The black culture must be the main ideal of its people. In order to be better in our culture, we must study ourselves scientifically. The way to autonomy is our own scientific thought. We must have scientific research. We must have and/or do scientific studies of black people in their environment and culture. Blackology. The black culture must be overhauled of these values which have been substituted for their own autonomous knowledge. These values were forced on black people as a means of depriving them of humanity. In order for one to be non-equal, you must first get the individual to denounce his cultural knowledge. This can only happen when the individual ceases to have dignity and cultural respect. This can only happen when the individual does not know his or her own heritage. The use of science. We are living in the age of science. We must become scientific as a culture. Just as science has made the Oriental culturally significant and equal, every nation in Asia gained its autonomy through cultural solidarity. Every nation on the African continent has gained its cultural independence through cultural solidarity. These nations have gained their autonomy through cultural knowledge. It is science that has brought about the autonomy of ethnic nations. Every nation that has gained its autonomy has gained it through the knowledge of theirself. Black people must utilize the science of blackology as the means of autonomy. It will take blackology to bring about the autonomy of black culture all over the world. We must not allow our philosophy to be colonized anymore. It is time to be self-sufficient as a culture. European concepts are as much a colonization as it ever was. We must recognize assimilation for what it really is. Assimilation is unusual, whether it is numerical or biased. It is the same as separate but unequal. Assimilation is death to the black culture. Assimilation and unequal is the same as separate but unequal. In fact, second-class citizenship is the end of hope for equality. Second-class citizenship is colonization. Second-class citizenship is nothing but 20th century inferiority. How can one justify assimilation and second-class citizenship? Either you are equal or you're not. We must not allow our children to be judged by white middle-class standards. We must understand that black people have their own standards and values. Century for equality. Century for blackology. This is science to remove dependency, inequality in the Oriental culture and Asian culture. It will take blackology to remove dependency and inequality from the backs and the minds of black people all over the world. It will take blackology to restore the 33 million black African people in America to cultural autonomy. Looks like it will be the century of blackology for autonomy. What does this mean? Why does it look like the century of blackology for cultural autonomy? Because black people have been listening to the trickery and the trickology and the lies and false promises of the European culture for too long. The ancient cultural knowledge of the black hop culture calls out to its people, resounding in truth. What it says is that you do not have to be like someone else to be equal. Be yourself. You do not have to assimilate to somebody else. Be yourself. Your culture is just as good and equal as any culture. You must be proud of your own cultural values. If your culture is not what it should be, it is up to you to make it better. Black youth have become disfranchised. Black adults have become fed up. Together, they have become disillusioned. They are dissatisfied. All of this has built up frustration in the black culture that makes black people more determined to develop their own ideals, philosophies, and visions. All phases of life, from A to Z. If you go through the black culture today, in the year 2004, you will find that the black culture is more creative and productive than ever before. Whether you go in the black culture just to visit, or whether you go to the black culture to live, wherever you go in the black culture, you will find children and adults working together in cultural consciousness. You will find black African clothing, language, and all phases of art and music, from religion to beliefs. The black culture and its people are ripe for the development of a cultural science. A black scholar by the name of Dr. J.J. Rose, president of Edjutainment, said, if the time is not right, then ripen the time. The 21st century will be the century for the science of blackology. Whenever you have cultural pride, you can assure that cultural solidarity will encourage scientific thought. Cultural science is booming in the hearts and the minds of black people all over the world. When cultural productivity comes, it will lay down the misconceptions that have plagued the black culture for so long. Understand that cultural knowledge is the beginning of autonomy. Cultural knowledge is the ignition of science. When blackology is utilized by the black culture, it will eliminate the myth of inferiority. Understand this, because no longer can others lead us astray. It looks like it's going to be blackology for autonomy. No longer will black people prove the cultural supremacy of other cultures. We will be able to see through the hype. There will be no longer the tendency to shine. We will no longer have to sing "We Shall Overcome," because blackology will give us the strength we need to stand on our own. Hey, the new generation. Today, black people want the same thing that other ethnics get. You see this young man, this young black man, the new generation asking for blackology for autonomy. The old Sambo, miseducated, culturally conditioned, integrated, assimilated, second-class action is of no use. The young generation does not want to hear anything about the odds. Young black people do not care about odds. When Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Thurgood Marshall, and Medgar Evers were standing for voting rights and civil rights, they stood against all odds. It was the civil rights leaders against the United States. In those days, it was said that the United States was the most powerful nation in the world. We are not afraid of those odds. The blacks of the 21st century in the year 2004 are not afraid of the odds. Black people are tired of being exploited, oppressed, and degraded. This is the lot that goes along with assimilation, inequality, and second-class citizenship. Black people want and need cultural liberation. One cannot be free if he or she has no science in which to call his or her own. Blackology is interwoven into the future of black culture. there have been many solutions given to black people by other cultures as philanthropy. The best solution is the blackological solution. In the 1980s, black people witnessed the return of conservative white Anglo-Saxon Protestant WASP, or white supremacy. The black culture can no longer feel that white Superman is going to solve its problem. The solution must manifest itself from within the culture. This is a fact. This is the law of nature that is here to tell you, in case you don't know it. There is a new generation of black people in the black culture who do not care anything about the arts. The black people are concerned about being a culture that is productive. They don't want to hear the victims of white supremacy, racism, sambo, miseducation, culturally conditioned, integrated, assimilated, Oreo, second-class trained black people talking about the odds. 2000 to 2010, the decade of blackology. Blackologically speaking, as black people, we should not be afraid of any odds. If we could endure slavery, we will have no problem developing our own culture. Why is 2000 to 2010 the decade for blackology? This is the decade entering a new century. This represents a new beginning, a time for new ideals. This is the time for cultures to prepare themselves for the 21st century. This is the time when the European scientists will be doing research to stabilize their cultural supremacy. Since the night, this represents a new beginning, a time to look for new ideals. This is the time for cultures to prepare themselves for the 21st century. This is the time when the European scientists will be doing research to stabilize their cultural supremacy. Since the 1960s, there has been subtle and subliminal white supremacy. In order to remain intact, the Eurological culture will become more overt and less understanding for other cultures. This will be the decade when black politicians will not vote for or by whites if they do not have the interests of the Eurological culture at hand. This is the decade when the Eurological interdisciplinary scientists are concerned for the problems facing their culture. These scientists will come into the black culture with one mission in mind: to decrease black male credibility. They are going to come in with false promises. As they make these promises, they will feed the frustration. They will only serve to make the black people more determined to have their own culture. Black scientists. 5. Blackology is a cultural science. When blackology speaks from the philosophies of the ancestors. When a blackologist speaks, they speak from the experience and the uncompromising struggle of their culture. Their philosophies are the philosophies of their forefathers and their ancient cultural values. Blackology, as well as the culture from which it manifests itself, perpetuates freedom and equality for all. The vision of black people is to utilize its sciences to develop its culture. The black culture welcomes philanthropy, as does blackology. It's science. Blackologically speaking, we cannot be number one with anyone else until we are number one with ourselves. The black culture has individuals who are students of politics, sociology, psychology, anthropology, and other sciences of theological studies. Psychologically, it is time to fashion the gifts we have to develop the science of black culture that will be efficient for cultural redevelopment. In studying the field of sociology, I realized that the gifts or talents in science reside and blessed with blackology. I believe for every interdisciplinary science Europeans, Asians, etc. have, the black culture has a science that is equivalent. We must study our culture scientifically and name it accordingly. The reason that blacks are able to study in the fields they are in is because when they are alone in their rooms by themselves, they can feel in their very souls lives and unknown, uncultivated science. As I have stated before, I am a blackologist who has studied the European science of sociology. Blackology is a science in its own cultural sphere. It is because we are scientists of our culture that we are able to understand the sciences of other cultures. Blackologically speaking, black people must recognize that we are the vessels of knowledge and science. When I speak as a blackologist, not as a sociologist. Because of victimization, black people have denounced their own cultural science. It is
blackologist.com.
It was the civil rights leaders against the United States. We were not afraid of those eyes. In those days, it was said that the United States was the most powerful country, nation in the world. The blacks of 2004 are not afraid of those eyes. Black people are tired of being exploited, oppressed, and degraded. This is the lie that goes with assimilation, inequality, and second-class citizenship. Black people want and need cultural liberation. One can be free only if they are liberated wholly. One cannot be free if he or she has no science in which to call their own. Blackology is interwoven into the future of black African culture. There have been many solutions given to the black people by other cultures as philanthropy. The best solution is the blackological solution. In the 1980s, black people witnessed the return of conservative, WASP, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant ideology, or white supremacy. The black culture can no longer feel that white Superman is going to solve its problems. The solution must manifest itself from within the black culture. This is a fact. This is the law of nature that is here to tell you, in case you don't know it. There is a new generation of black people in the black culture who do not care anything about the eyes. These black people are concerned about being a culture that is productive. They don't want to hear year, the victim of white supremacy, racism, Sambo, miseducation, culturally conditioned, integrated, assimilated, Oreo, second class, trained black people talking about the odds. B. 2000 to 2010, the decade for blackology. Blackologically speaking, as black people, we should not be afraid of any odds. If we could endure slavery, we will have no problem developing our own culture. Why is the 2000 to 2010 deemed the decade for blackology? This is the decade entering a new century. This represents a new beginning, a time to look for new ideals. This is the time for culture to prepare themselves for the 21st century. This is the time when the European scientists will be doing research to stabilize their cultural supremacy. Since the 1960s, there has been subtle and subliminal white supremacy. In order to remain intact, the Eurological culture will become more overt and less understanding for other cultures. This will be the decade when black politicians will not be voted for by whites if they do not have the interests of the Eurological culture at hand. This is the decade when Eurological interdisciplinary sciences are concerned for the problems facing their culture alone. These scientists will come into the black culture with one mission in mind: to decrease black male credibility. They are going to come in with false promises. As they make these promises, they will feed the frustration. They will only serve to make black people more determined to have their own culture. Black scientists. 5. Blackology is a black cultural science. When the blackologists speak, they speak from the experience and struggle of their culture. Their philosophies are the philosophies of their forefathers and their ancient cultural values. Blackology, as well as the culture from which it manifested itself, perpetuate freedom and equality for all. The vision of black people is to utilize its sciences to develop its culture. The black culture welcomes philanthropy, as does blackology, its science. Blackologically speaking, we cannot be number one with anyone else until we are number one with ourselves. The black culture has individuals who are students of politics, sociology, psychology, anthropology, and other sciences of Eurological studies. Blackologically, it is time to fashion the gifts we have to develop the science of the black culture that would be sufficient to cultural development. I studied in the field of sociology. I realized that the talent or gift in science, which I have and was blessed with, is blackology. I believe for every interdisciplinary science in Europe, European or Asian, etc. has, the black culture has a science that is equivalent. We must have study on our culture. We must study our culture scientifically and name it accordingly. The reason then their very souls lie in unknown, uncultivated science. As I have stated before, I am a black owl, one who has studied the European science of sociology. Blackology is a science in its own cultural sphere. It is because we are scientists of our culture that we are able to understand sciences of other cultures. Blackologically speaking, black people must recognize that we are vessels of knowledge and science. When I speak as a blackologist, not as a sociologist. Because of victimization, black people have denounced their own cultural science. It is time that we become more humane and speculate on the sciences of our culture. Studying Europeans and other cultures is good research, but the black scientist must dig deeper into his soul and culture to find uncultivated science that have been hidden for many years. To be a scientist and not work to develop the science of your culture is to be a hypocrite to your cultural heritage and values of your culture. European supremacy is hypocritical to the concept of humanity. When we look at the United States of America and the world, black scientists must not only look through the eyes of the European dominance vicariously, but through the eyes of its own cultural economy. We must utilize the experiences of our culture to define the sciences of our vision. We talk about the American dream as citizens of this country. If we are to make our dreams become reality, we must envision our cultural science. Blacks have not seen the American dream, only the European vision of the world. What we are taught in America was that every ethnic was somebody and that each culture could strive to be its very best. In a scientific nation, you cannot be your best without the utilization of your own scientists. Black scientists have been obligated to the development and redevelopment of European cultures. The black culture has not benefited from the fruits of its womb. This makes me ask the question, are black scientists independent thinkers or are they puppets? We have not benefited from the American dream, only the American nightmare. Blackologically speaking, as black scientists, we must have pride in ourselves in looking for the bigger organizations. We have not wanted to work for black organizations. Only the bigger organizations, i.e. predominantly white universities, government, colleges, or corporate America. We have not wanted to work for or with black organizations. The reason is that we have denied ourselves our own cultural heritage by saying that these are small, unorganized black businesses. I must bring this to your conscience by reminding you of what one of the blackologists, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said. It is not how big you are that determines if you will make it or not, but that you be the best of whatever you are. our European minds is unable or unwilling to teach the outside world something of the institutions and inner feelings of its people, if for some reason or other he can show nothing of his own real self, if he can show nothing of his real self to those anxious to learn and to assist him, if he cannot make his friends feel the force of his racial character and sympathize with his racial aspirations, then it is evident that his education has been sadly defective, that his training by aliens has done but little for him, that his teachers have surely missed their aim and wasted their time. Edward Wilmot Blythe, The African Society, 1902. We must acknowledge that our people and our experience are our greatest resources. Black people have not benefited from the European vision. The generation growing up now can see this. We are beginning to reject the ideological education and vision. They are not worried about not getting a job. If you are black, you are born without a job. They are also not afraid to go to jail. They feel that they were born in jail. If you are not allowed to educate your children on the beliefs, philosophy, and science of your culture, you are unable to be equal. 6. Cultural politics. The government of the United States is guilty of cultural supremacy and bias. The reason is because it forced blacks of America to learn only theological concepts. 33 million black victims of Europeanism are waking up and gaining their own cultural consciousness. They are becoming culturally mature. As they develop this cultural maturity, they are able to see the recent trends in these cultural elections. These elections are political, but indeed they are cultural. Black people see that the white or European cultures are so evenly divided. The race is so close. They have to go back and recount the votes. Any ethnic group that has a culture that will stick together is in a strategic position. Either way, that culture which is together will win. The black culture is in a position to determine who will be the president and who will not. The black culture has that voting power. The black culture can keep a politician in Washington, D.C., in the White House, or they can send him back to where he came from. The black culture is the force that will determine the future of America. The black people must know the extent of their voting power. The voting power of the black culture is responsible for the Democratic Party being in Washington, D.C. Whites were evenly divided. It is the fact that 80% of the black culture went behind the Democratic Party. When you see this, you can see the votes of the black culture as being the key factor. In spite of the fact that the black culture is determining factor, what do you get out of it? The Democrats have been in Washington, D.C. because of the black vote. They have been there for years. Yet, the legislation they want to bring up, they brought it up and got it out of the way. Now they have yet to bring up the issue of black cultural education or the development of a cultural science for black people, blackology. I am sure the government could grant the cultural sciences of the black culture funding for their tax dollars to research and develop blackology. Why haven't the U.S. government been conscious of the need for the development of black culture? If the black culture can pay taxes and contribute to the political, educational, and economic development of America, it is only justifiable that the government contribute to the redevelopment of black culture. The scientists of the black culture have made many contributions to the development of America and the world. It is only proper and fitting that America and other nations and cultures contribute to the redevelopment of black culture and the efforts of the scientists. The cultural sciences of the black culture contribute to the advance of other cultures because of humanity and brotherhood. It is through the integrity of these moral characters that the black culture requests the retribution of its contributions and deeds. These are those who say that the black culture is tired of political trickery. There are those who say that the black culture should be tired of political trickology. According to Malcolm X in the 1960s, he said in the United States there were 100 senators, 56 were Democrats, and 44 were Republicans. In the House of Representatives, there are 107. The majority being Democrats. All are white. The party that the black culture backs controls the House of the Representatives and the Senate. Even though they are the majority, they are all unable to keep the promise they made to the black culture. This is because the black culture must educate its own political sciences and develop its own political party. As long as black voters depend on black politicians who are not sincere to our culture, as long as black voters depend on the politicians and the parties of other cultures, they will be politically weak. One can not politic for you. No one can politic for you. Psychologically speaking, anytime you give your vote to a party that controls the majority or half of the government, and that party cannot keep the promises that it made to you during election time, it is time to organize your own political party. Anyone that continues to associate and identify itself with a party that deceives the black culture is an exploiter of this culture. What kind of excuse has the government or these political parties come up with? They try and pass the buck to the Republicans or the Democrats. There was a time when black people voted as individuals. They voted for the party they liked. They also voted for the party their parents voted for. They also voted out of ignorance, just to say that they cast their vote. Many voted because they didn't want those who had given their lives for the vote to have died in vain. When we were culturally immature, we went along with passing the buck. Today, as our culture is developed, we have acquired the awareness of cultural politics. The black culture is able to see and think for its people. Today we can see that Republicans and Democrats come from the same culture. A Democrat and a Republican are the same. They are in disguise. In observing the structure of the government, it is controlled by Euro-American culture. The government is controlled by 16 senatorial and 20 congressional committees. All are majority white. Therefore, the government is controlled by Euro-American politicians. It is said to the people of the black culture and other ethnics that America is the land of opportunity and equality. Today, America is in the hands of Euro-American culture, cultural supremacists, European dominance, and cultural colonialism, and white supremacy, cultural representatives. These white politicians disguise themselves as philanthropists. A Republican is nothing but a Democrat. The father of all of them is sitting in the White House. If color does not matter, why is the president's temporary housing named the White House? America is supposed to be colorblind nation. If this is true, why has there been for 200 years a White House? Is it because the government of the United States of America is controlled by European or white culture? I stated the presidency is occupied by a representative of the Euro-American or white culture. This is not for the black culture to take that the opportunity to vote a member of this culture into the highest political position in America cannot be a reality. It is a known fact that the culture that has a member elected to president will reap the benefits of cultural pride and economics, cultural solidarity, and cultural respect. It takes the word of a culture to elect a president into the office. It takes the word of a culture to elect the president into the office. To achieve such a mark is to build cultural esteem. When George Bush stands in the presidency, he represents the culture from which he came. He does not stand alone. His culture stands with him in honor. When Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton, Ron Daniels, Dr. Lenore Falon, Shirley Chisholm, and other blacks stand and run for political office or president, they do not stand alone. They run for the political dignity, honor, respect, and the beauty of their culture. Their culture runs with them in honor of those who have given their lives that they might be able to achieve such a dream. It is our culture that molds us. Each individual owes a debt to his or her culture to give back to it in order that it may continue to make contributions to their culture. Today in our cultural maturity, we know that whenever a European American comes from his or her culture, they represent their culture, whether they are from the north, south, east, or west. We know that they are solely obligated to their culture. They may be philanthropists, but they are obligated to their cultural values. They are obligated to maintain their cultural values. What Euro-American presidents and politicians do when they get elected in the office is invite all the assimilated Sambo, Euro-American thinking black leaders in for coffee. These exploiters cannot pass up this opportunity. The Euro-American white politicians do this so that he can appear all right to black voters and the black culture. These exploiters come back to the black culture to get votes for the Euro-American politician. They tell us that he or she is all right because they are philanthropists. They believe in jobs, welfare, and drug rehabilitation. They tell us all the things they believe we want to hear. They know the problems we are having because they are our people. These brothers and sisters were trained by white universities, colleges, high schools, and other institutions to deceive us for our vote. They deceive us for their own profit and glory. There was a time when we were culturally immature, and we went along with that. Today, we know that if the black politicians did not attend the schools of black culture, we must take him or her through trials. Even those who have attended our schools and tell us to vote for someone who is not from our culture, we must take them to task. We must take them through trials and tribulations. A black politician must be of, from, by, for, and about our culture and be educated by our culture. He must not have any strings with other cultures. He must not be obligated to other institutions or other cultures. A black politician must be concerned about whether he or she can do for our culture and not for his or her own self. They must not be afraid to speak for black culture. They must not be ashamed of being a black politician. Black politicians must be concerned with the future of young blacks, elderly, blacks physically challenged, or poor blacks. We know that a black politician is aware of joblessness, needs of black business, and the rights of his culture. A black politician must be able to wear the attire of his culture, not upon request, but as tradition and character. I say we have been misled. The black culture has been taken for a ride. I want to respect black African culture and its voting power. I will be watching in the protest of Judge Alvin Hastings Jr. I watched as one brother sold out Brother Hastings to the Euro-American politician. We have lived in the name of American politics for too long. We are divided as long as we are Democrats and Republicans. I am not either. It is time that we realize we are neither. We must have cultural sense to know this. These brothers and sisters who place these parties before the black culture are being victimized by their own opportunities. This utilization of political philosophy and policies of other cultures are philanthropy. We must not make philanthropy a dependency. Everyone must have their own political party in order to perpetuate the ideal of political autonomy. Everyone deserves a chance to make it on their own. Black politicians must not have their associations more important than their cultural obligations. Blackology, the scientific study of the evolution of black African culture. It is the perpetuation and utilization of the ideals, philosophies, theories, beliefs, concepts, and notions of their past and present life experience, and the spirit of their uncompromising struggle to make their cultural knowledge. It is also the acclamation, declaration, and proclamation of intellectual genius and creativity. Collectively, it is the manifestation of a black-aligned, intellectual, cultural science education. By blackologist, Professor Walter Banana Cross, in the year of redevelopment of Black African culture, 214RE. The way of blackology. If I speak in the languages of other cultures and assimilate to their ways, but have not cultural application, I am a copycat or a second-class citizen. If I have their theories, philosophies, and beliefs, and can quote all their great men, and have studied all their sciences so as to perpetuate their culture, but have not a sense of my own cultural solidarity, I am walking the path of losing. If I throw away all my heritage and hold up the heritage of other cultures, but have not any consciousness of my own, I gain nothing. Blackology is patient and kind. It is not jealous or boastful. It is not ashamed of its history. It is productive and creative. It does not rejoice at self-hatred. It rejoices in unity. It bears all its people. It believes in all its people. It has hope for the future. It knows what the people need and what they want. It endures all struggles. Blackology never ends. As for assimilation, it will pass away. As for other cultures, they will cease. For their theories, philosophies are imperfect, and their second-class citizenship is imperfect. But when blackology comes, their imperfections will pass away. When I was a slave, I spoke as a slave. I dreamed as a slave. I thought as a slave. I reasoned as a slave. I acted like a slave. When I became emancipated and free, I gave up my slave mentality. For now, we must acknowledge the need of blackology. But then we wore masks. Now I have knowledge of self and equality. Then I was afraid. Even as I understand the need of cultural science, I know I must be understood. So I say to myself, it must be worth fighting for. It must be worth living for. It must be worth dying for. Abide, be free, but the greatest is to die. If a black man or woman has not found something worth dying for, he or she is not fit to live. Brothers and sisters, blackology is the reality. There is a myth. It is a vision deeply rooted in the black culture, at the HBCUs, and in the minds of black scholars. There is a myth that one day in the black culture, all over the world, the sons and daughters of former slaves, free blacks, and all black Africans will be proud of their culture and will be able to live together as brothers and sisters. There is a myth, brothers, that one day in the black culture, blackology will be taught to black children, and they will be able to say equality at last, and that they will no longer have to deal with second-class citizenship, minority status, and colonialism. There is a myth that the cultural science of blackology will come and eliminate cultural deprivation of black people. There is a myth, brothers and sisters. The black man will no longer be dependent on the ologies of other cultures, but that they will utilize the philosophies, theories, and the knowledge of their forefathers to develop for their culture solutions to the problems of black culture and black African people. There is a myth today in the black culture. The science of blackology will become a reality in this day. With this science, we can go out and achieve equality, and there will be no unsurmountable goals. There is a myth that my children and other young brothers and sisters will not come up the way I did. They will be judged on the content of their character, and their character will be molded and not by the measuring rod of white middle class standards. There is a myth this afternoon that there in this country and the world, black brothers and sisters will be able to study blackology in their schools, and that blackology will be a science that will be a contribution to world culture. And they will be able to be productive and creative in their culture by building institutions of self-determination. Yes, there is a myth that one day in the black culture that the science of blackology will become real and black knowledge will roll down like water and black heritage like a mighty stream. There is a myth, brothers and sisters, that we will recognize the philosophies, theories, and the beliefs of black scholars, and that all black men, women, and children are involved by the Creator's will in some unalienable rights. And among these are cultural affirmation, cultural solidarity, cultural education, and cultural intellectual equality. There is a myth that the exploitation, degradation, and cultural inequality will be eliminated, and black culture will be exalted, and that marginalization, underestimation, and devaluing of black people will come to an end, and black intellectuals will see this, and the glory of black culture will be revealed, and all black African people shall see this together. There is a myth this afternoon that the brotherhood of the black man shall become a reality in this day. And through blackology, we will go out and achieve equality. With blackology, we will be able to build a tunnel of hope through a mountain of despair. We will be able to achieve a new day when all black people will have knowledge of their culture. There will be able to join hands and say equality at last. Thank the ancestors for their sacrifice. Equality at last. Thank the Creator Almighty. Equality at last. We want to make them proud. There is a myth. Blackology will make real the word, all men are created equal. By the liberation of their innovative, authentic, monolithic, intellectual, creative genius of Black African people and their culture. All praise is due to the ancestors and the Creator. Blackologist, Professor Walter Zamana Cross. Blackology is the scientific study of the evolution of Black African people, the perpetuation and utilization of their cultural knowledge, the intellectual creative genius, and the manifestation of cultural science education. The myth of Blackology is real. There is a myth in the Black culture today that the science of Blackology is real. There is a myth that Blackology is in the heart, the mind, and the soul of Black African people. There is a myth, brothers and sisters, that Blackology will make Black people real, intellectual. Science. There is a myth of Blackology. The myth of Blackology is real. Blackology of cultural science is real.
Blackology.com, coming to you from Fort Washington, Maryland, south of D.C. We're bringing you Blackology for education, for cultural
quest for cultural, intellectual equality. This year finds us a rather bewildered people. We neither have culture within nor culture without. And yet, my brothers and sisters, this year a hope for culture can no longer be dismissed or some kind of pious dream of some theological scholar. If we don't have culture in this world, we will destroy ourselves by the neglect of the use of our own cultural knowledge. If we don't learn to love our culture, we will perish as fools. Let me suggest, if we are to have equality, our culture must be the knowledge of our substance. Yes, as Black intellectuals, we must identify who we are. According to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., we are tied together. We are interrelated. What affects one directly, indirectly affects the other. We are all caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one affects the other. If we do not love our culture, others cannot trust us to love theirs. Have you ever stopped to think about it? That when you wake up in the morning, you can't go to work without depending on other brothers and sisters. Somebody might call you and say, "Good morning." Turn on your radio and listen to WOL 1450 AM, XM 169, Magic 102.3 FM, WHUR FM, WPGC FM 95, and other Black radio stations. You are depending on half the brothers and sisters in your culture. When you go into the kitchen, you see pictures of your mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, nieces, nephews, children, and friends. Before you get out the house in the morning, you are dependent on more than half your culture. Maybe you want to go home for Christmas or go to the family reunion. No individual can live alone. No family can live alone. And as long as we try, the more we are going to have cultural problems and self-hatred. We will not have equality until we recognize this basic fact of the necessity of cultural knowledge. How can one avoid being depressed when he sees with his own eyes evidences of brothers and sisters who deny themselves cultural identity? How can one avoid being depressed when he sees with his own eyes the lack of cultural affirmation? There are no grammar schools teaching Blackology. There are no middle schools teaching Blackology. No high schools, no colleges or universities. When I beheld these conditions, something inside of me said, we black folks stand idly by while our children are being starved of cultural relevance and knowledge. I started thinking about this fact, and I said to myself, I know where we can educate black children on blackology, in the black churches, the black schools, the HBCUs. There is the solution to the problem. We can use those books wrote by black writers, authors, collecting dust in the libraries at HBCUs, public libraries, all across the black culture and the black world. We have a surplus of cultural knowledge. We can solve this problem of black children going into the world starving for the lack of knowledge about their culture. We must not allow for another generation of black children to become adults without cultural solidarity. We no longer want our children to go to bed hungry for cultural knowledge, starving for self-worth. In order for the little light within our children to shine, we must teach them blackology and cultural science. We must teach them the philosophy, theories, and beliefs of the black scholars. We must teach what black people want, what black people need, and the future direction of black people and their culture. The next thing we must be concerned with, if we are to teach blackology, is the sacredness of all their cultural knowledge. Everyone, brother and sister, is somebody. So we must learn that black life is too important to be killed on the battlefields of the black community. The black man is more than an N-I-G-G-E-R, more than a servant. The black man is a child of God, made in his image. Therefore, we must be respected as such. Until the black man sees this everywhere, until black nations see this everywhere, we will be fighting ourselves. One of the strangest things is that all the black scholars talk about culture. The blackological thinkers of today talk eloquently about culture. The black scholars of the past came giving their lives for cultural liberation. They were Jomo Kenyatta, Kwame Nkrumah, Haile Selassie, Nat Turner, Toussaint Louverture, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, Mary McLeod Bethune, W.E.B. Du Bois, Marcus Garvey, Ida B. Wells Barnett, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Martin Luther King Jr., and Malcolm X. Were black scholars seeking cultural knowledge. What is the problem? We must not talk about the black culture as a distant goal, as an end we seek. One day we must come to see that blackology is not merely a distant goal we seek, but it is a means by which we must arrive at cultural, intellectual equality. We must pursue cultural ends through blackological means. When we truly believe in the sacredness of all black knowledge, we won't exploit black people anymore. We won't trample over black people with the feet of the oppressor. We won't kill black people anymore. Blackology, we will learn the power of creative and redemptive love. There are 4 types of black love. The black man loves black woman, and the black woman loves black man. The black family love, the love of culture and to love yourself. The love of the black man and the black woman, and the black woman to the black man, is some of the most beautiful love ever to have been expressed. It's this kind of love. Black people talk about this love. Black poets, writers, musicians in their writings, music and poetry. Black writers such as James Baldwin, Paul Laurence Dunbar, Langston Hughes, sisters such as Gwendolyn Brooks, Nikki Giovanni, Phyllis Wheatley, and black musicians such as Louis Armstrong, Duke Ellington, Bessie Smith, Ethel Waters. This list could go on, but I think you know what I mean. Choose some for yourself. These brothers and sisters talk eloquently about the love of black men to black women and black women to black men. There is the black family love. When you love your brothers and sisters, this is the kind of love where you love black people because they are your friends, your neighbors, and your family. This is the kind of intimate love. This is the kind of love you have for black people because you get along with them well, and those that you like. You love them because you are loved. Then the black culture teaches us about another love, and it is the love of culture. The love of culture is understanding, creative, and extensive and productive love. Goodwill for all black people. Cultural love is an overflowing love. It is more than friendship. Cultural love is an overflowing love that seeks nothing in return. Black theologians say it is the love of God operating in the black man and the black woman's heart. So, when you love on this level, you love all black people, not because you like them, or because their ways appeal to you, but you love every black man, woman, and child because God loves them. These are cultural aspirations, unalienable rights, which all people are involved in by the Creator's will, and they are equality, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This is what blackology means when it talks about love your brothers and sisters. I'm so happy they did not say like, because I find it hard to like brothers and sisters who make the job more important than the future of black children and the black culture. I can't like brothers and sisters who would exploit me. I can't like brothers and sisters who would ignore the injustices placed on black youth of America and the world. I can't like brothers and sisters who threaten to kill black people day in and day out. Cultural love is greater than life. It is creative, redemptive, and goodwill for all black people. The fourth love is to love yourself. When you love yourself, I mean, you must learn that the greatest love of all is to love yourself. That means anything that you represent is you. If you don't love blackology, you don't love yourself. That means anything that you represent is you. If you don't love blackology, you don't love your mother, your father, sisters, brothers. To be truthful to you, you don't love yourself. Learning to love yourself is interwoven with everything that is your culture. If you don't love your culture, you don't love yourself. You must learn to love yourself when no one else does. Never let anyone teach you to hate yourself. I have seen too much hatred to want to hate myself. Hatred is too great a burden to bear. Somehow we must be able to stand up to our most bitter opposition and say that blackology is cultural, intellectual equality. Believe what you will, brothers and sisters, but we will gain your confidence by our ability to love our culture. Support the injustices of police departments. Denounce your culture. Come into our neighborhoods and exploit our brothers and sisters. But be you assured, we will wear you down by our capacity to love you. We will so appeal to your heart and conscience, and we will wear you down in the process. Our victory will be a victory of cultural, intellectual equality. As black intellectuals, we must understand the power of creative and redemptive love of culture. From the struggle of our past, we must acknowledge that from struggles comes growth. Culturally, we have grown into a people of creative and redemptive love. This is a justifiable right to love all black people, not because you like them, but because the Creator loves them. There is to be equality in culture and goodwill towards all black people. We must finally believe in the ultimate reality of blackology, and that is cultural equality is based on moral foundation of the innovative, authentic, monolithic, intellectual, creative genius of all black African people. It is also based on the perpetuation and utilization of the experience of the uncompromising struggle for justice and equality. Truth crushed to the earth will rise again. No lie can live forever. I tried to talk to some brothers and sisters about blackology. I must confess today that not long after talking to them about this cultural science, I saw it turn into a nightmare. Yes, I am personally the victim of deferred dreams and blasted hopes. In spite of that, I close today by saying I still believe in blackology because you can't give up in life. If you lose hope, somehow you lose that vitality that keeps life moving. You lose that courage to be the quality to go on in spite of. So this is our fate. As we continue to hope for cultural solidarity and goodwill towards all black people. Let us know that in the process that we have cultural, intellectual equality. So today, I still believe in blackology, that black people will rise up and come to see that they are made to live together as brothers and sisters. I still believe in blackology this morning, that one day black children will be judged on the basis of the content of their character. And that character will be molded by blackology and intellectual cultural science. As long as the ologies of other cultures are the barometers by which we judge ourselves, we will have second-class character, second-class citizenship. We will be judged by the ideals of others. I believe blackologically that brothers and sisters will have cultural intellectual equality. I believe blackologically that brotherhood will be more than just a word at the end of a sentence. It will be the first order of Virginia on the black cultural agenda. And black knowledge will roll down like waters, and black heritage like a mighty stream. I still believe in blackology today, that all black people will believe in their culture, and that black people won't exploit black people anymore. And black people will no longer rise up against black people anymore. Neither will they study self-hatred anymore. Yes, I believe in blackology, that the black man will develop their own ideals, philosophies, theories, to make vehicles to take us through the 21st century. And blackology will be the vehicle of cultural, intellectual equality. I believe that blackology will put an end to second-class citizenship and minority status and make black culture the reality by which we achieve intellectual liberation. If anybody asks you about blackology, tell them that it is a drum major for black culture, a drum major for black heritage, a drum major for intellectual, cultural liberation. Blackologically, we want you to mention the fact that this cultural knowledge came from the HBCUs, the black culture, black high schools, and the black community. We want you to say, if anybody asks you, that blackology is a drum major for cultural, intellectual equality. A drum major for black knowledge. As black people, we want to say that blackology is the conscience of our culture and our heritage. All black people must be committed to the elevation of black culture, black knowledge, and the cultural science of blackology. Blackologically testing, 1, 2, 3, blackologically testing. This is a dissertation proposal, 219RE. Blackology, 1962 to 2007, a case study on the evolution of black African intellectual cultural science. In the black diaspora, within the United States. A. Introduction and background. B. Statement of the problem. 1. Assumptions. 2. Dissertation hypothesis. 3. Significance of the study. 4. Limitations of the study. C. The review of relevant literature. D. Blackological research methodology. A. Introduction. B. Blackological research method. C. Library and internet resources defined. D. Research questions. E. Response to Blackology. 1. Blackology database. E. Explanation of coined Blackological words and definitions. F. The outline of the proposed study. G. Bibliography. Blackology, 1962 to 2008. A case study on the evolution of Black African intellectual cultural science in the Black diaspora within the United States. A. Introduction and Black background. Blackology is an intellectual effort at scientific understanding of the relationship between the Black man and the construction about himself and the Black world. This research for the truth and foundations of what one can call the Black experience. Many Black scholars writing on this phenomenon have tried to develop analytical and methodological tools to differentiate their approaches, and those scholars we blackologically call a urological perspective. Dr. Ronald Walters, in his writings, clearly demonstrates treating the substance of Black life as something secondhand which can be picked up at will, or something we already know, that does not need systematic and constant elucidation, clarification, and development, is an insult to the quality and complexity of the Black experience, and perpetuates the racist attitudes which graduate schools have of the value of the study of Black life in general. Writing in these perspectives, Dr. Suleiman Yang of Howard University's African Studies Department captures the essence of what leads to the intellectual condition Blackology attempts to address. Over the past 500 years, the people of Africa and Europe have come to know one another through trade and commerce, on the other hand, but most violently and brutally through slavery and colonialism on the other. In the course of this encounter, not only have lands been lost and occupied, but millions of Black lives have perished, either at sea or through the Middle Passage. But most significant loss to the children of Africa was their language, their culture, and Black historical memories. and their sense of personal and group wealth. Growing out of these crises, stresses, and tensions and welfare is the persistence of cultural domination. This is best exemplified by the hegemony of European thought in the black world. Aspects of this urological phenomenon are in the mode of living among black elites, their choice of creature comforts, and their fascination with the intellectual traditions of urological societies. Not only do these men and women articulate themselves in European languages, but their logic and metaphysics are deeply rooted in European ways and manners. Through this elaborate and consuming system of mental and cultural domination, any attempt to elaborate or liberate the black man or black woman from the ill effects of slavery and colonialism must result in a phenomenon or cabal response. In the last 50 years of decolonization of European power and hegemony, we have various attempts to address the pressing challenge to black life and culture. The purpose of this dissertation is therefore to accomplish a number of things in the field of black culture, particularly with respect to the evolution of the uncompromising struggle for justice, redemption, advancement of black people, and the redevelopment of black African culture. Banking heavily on the fact an autonomous blackological commerce will not come into being without the successful intellectual liberation from the indoctrinated European concepts and values that are conscripted into the black world. This study sets out to identify and define the maneuvers in which blackology come into being. To this end, therefore, this dissertation seeks to argue for the need of a philosophical, methodological, commercial, and legal blackological science as a way of knowing, evaluating, understanding, and dealing specifically with the evolution of black life here and now. Such an approach would be the perpetuation and utilization of the spirit of their uncompromising struggle as their autonomous cultural knowledge. Indeed, it is also the establishment of this intellectual science called blackology. Blackology is the scientific study of the evolution of black African people and their culture. It is the perpetuation and utilization of the ideals, philosophies, theories, beliefs, concepts, and notions of their past and present life experience, and the spirit of their uncompromising struggle as their cultural knowledge. It is the affirmation, declaration, and proclamation of intellectual genius, creativity, and the black story. Holistically, it is the manifestation of a blackological, intellectual, cultural science education. This study will be based primarily on the concepts contemporary grassroots Black people. It was conducted at Black institutions of higher learning. This dissertation is written to establish a field of study by which the knowledge of Black African culture and Blackological studies can be utilized to cultivate and educate Black people. Also to obtain careers and degrees in this field. This is a national initiative under which the federal government, private business, and individual donors have already allocated substantial federal resources and investments into programs in the previous years, i.e. Afrocentricity, African-centered education, African studies, Black history, Pan-African studies, Negro history, etc. The science of Blackology has the potential for dealing with issues of reparations. Underestimated, devalued, marginalized, demotivated, low self-esteem Black youth and adults who are starving from a lack of cultural affirmation and consciousness about Black African culture. Also, the lack of perpetuation and participation and success of many Black students in elementary, junior high, high school, colleges, and universities in their autonomous cultural heritage, traditions, and knowledge as a field of study. This dissertation will elaborate on the limited access to the information and resources necessary for developing intellectual science for Black African culture and its Black scholars. It will also deal with the issue of a lack of participation of Black people in such endeavors to develop a cultural science for discipline, morality, values, and traditions. The objective of this dissertation is to develop the cultural science of Blackology into an instrument by which Black people can utilize to instill values and provide traditions from the ideals, philosophies, theories, beliefs, concepts of Black scholars, past and present. It is also to develop a field of study that will provide careers, degrees, and employment for those who are intellectuals of the Black culture, not just for jobs and careers, but indeed to show the evolutional progress of the Black African culture and Black scholars by establishing this cultural science, quote-unquote, Blackology, in the curriculums of private, public, and charter schools. This will give credence to the existence of Black African culture in the present neurological educational system in the United States. Blackology will demonstrate equal capacity for Black people and their culture to conceptualize, aggregate, and process human knowledge. It will also show their culture as creative, productive, and be scientifically researched. Hopefully, this dissertation will contribute to the building of Blackology Research and Development Institute. In order to understand the manner in which Blackological thought and processes are developing in the historical colleges and universities, HBCUs, where the evolution of an authentic, autonomous, Blackological intellectual thought has taken place, we need to examine and analyze critically the impact of this cultural science has on Black student population. library, archives, and study facilities at HBCUs. It will benefit from student participation, structured interviews with faculty, and class participation. Will provide data for comparison purposes. The purpose, the study will yield the first detailed Blackological analysis of the content and impact of Black cultural science, Blackology, on Black institutions of higher education. The researcher, Blackologist conducting the study will provide and distribute these findings through Black media and other resources. This dissertation will study the effects of producing Blackology or Blackologist in every public-private charter school and HBCU in the Black African cultural market in the United States, with future expansion in Black Africa. Statement of the problem. In order for Black scholars to address the problem of Blackology as a cultural science in the Black culture, we must revisit the arguments made by Carter G. Woodson, Dr. John Henry Clark, Ngugiwa Thiong'o, Nathan Hare, Kwame Nkrumah, Marcus Garvey, and many other known figures. Growing out of the text and narratives of these persons, the thesis of this dissertation argues the European capturing of the Black African mind has resulted in a terrible political, environmental, and emotional situation that demands immediately that Black Africans regain control of their intellectual world. Through such a process, Black Africans at home on the continent and in the Black diaspora would now be able to see the world through their own conscience, and with the tools of Blackology that is critical of the mimic behavior dictated by those who control our languages, our theories of life, and the concepts that serve as intellectual baskets within all things African or Black or story. Blackology, 1962 to 2008. A case study on the evolution of Black African intellectual cultural science in the Black diaspora within the United States. I must once again reiterate the definition of Blackology, and I must imply that it is not a word or a sentence, but the complete definition of the word. Blackology is the scientific study of the evolution of Black African people and their culture. It is the perpetuation and utilization of the ideals, philosophies, beliefs, concepts, and notions of their past and present life experience and the spirit of their uncompromising struggle as their cultural knowledge. It is also the acclamation, affirmation, declaration, and proclamation of intellectual genius, creativity, and the Black story. Holistically, it is the manifestation of a Blackological, intellectual, cultural science education. The problem here is that there is no authentic intellectual cultural science owned by Black scholars for Black African culture that is developed, founded, operated, maintained, and manufactured for Black African culture that is in the United States with by design, and it is a monopoly. This dissertation, entitled Blackology, 1962 to 2008, a case study on the evolution of Black African intellectual cultural science in the Black diaspora within the United States, proposes to acclaim and proclaim that Black African culture, its people, their intellectual genius, creativity, and Black story is the essence, evidence, and substance that makes for the evolution and manifestation of the cultural science of Blackology. This science will meet the need, supply, and demand for the intellectual acquisition, cultural knowledge, professional careers, and intellectual entrepreneurship in the Black cultural market within the United States, ultimately the Black world. Blackological research has revealed the statement of the problem appears to be what Dr. John Henry Clark has taught us in his 1987 video, Part 1, Human and Spiritual Values in Africa Before European Contact. In the contrast of Blackology as the core of this study, Dr. Clark says, I will begin with the fact that we live in a conceived intellectual universe. Anyone who tackles a subject of this nature goes against that fact. This is an ingrained fact, the fact of living in a European conceived universe. This conceived fact became confirmed in the 15th and the 16th centuries. It deals with the principal decision the Europeans made during their 200-year dark ages, or turning point in their history, when they came out of the Middle Ages and made the decision on world dominance. Blackologically speaking, this is the beginning of the struggle for cultural intellectual equality for Black people. This is the beginning of the struggle of Black African people for cultural and intellectual freedom, for justice, equality, and also against cultural deprivation. In the past centuries, there was no field of intellectual science founded, owned, operated, and housed by Black scholars to manufacture, maintain their autonomous cultural knowledge until the founding, research, study, and development of Blackology. There is no entrepreneurship of intellectual studies or science that will provide careers and professionalism in the Black cultural market that is their autonomous body of knowledge. Although there is the steering of Black scholars into Eurological and Arabic studies, which is the exploitation of the intellectual genius and creativity for the benefit of these studies. There is a lack of information about the evolution of Black African intellectual genius and creativity. According to Dr. Ronald Walters, there was the rhetorical perpetration and training by Eurological scholars that ideals, philosophies, notions, conceptions, and traditions of Black African culture are not the substance of scientific thought. There was also the assumption that only Eurological or Arabic scholars are capable of developing interdisciplinary sciences or autonomous studies. There is the assumption that all Black people needed to know was that what the Eurological scholars said was good for them. There was the perpetration that Black people was also the ideal that the presence of urological scholars made the black scholars morally incapable of reaching and studying black African culture autonomously. The acceptance of blackology by traditional urological studies and their practitioners was met with both disbelief and acceptance by the students and the faculty at the HBCUs. For those who disbelieved, there came the threat of economic reprisal and the fear of the traditional institutional white supremacy races of covert and overt. This threat was applied through the process of stigmatic injury. There was also the refusal to recognize the evolution of the black mind as a factor in the growth and development of black people. There is the inference of black people as always under the control of the conceived, perpetrated urological universe. As a black scholar, it was not seen as an equal, only as a servile being and an inferior. Before Negro History Week, there was no class or season to study, research, and elaborate on black African culture. This made black African culture only seasonal in its accommodation by urological studies. Black scholars were only vindicated if they were seen in the world as students of urological studies, history, and Arab studies. Any ideals, talents, or gifts they had was taken by the urological scholars to make non-black people wealthy. As a matter of fact, the black scholars was and is an intellectual captive. A black scholar could study any field of study as long as it was urological or Arabic, i.e. Negro history, black history, and Arabic studies, but they could not develop their own autonomous body of knowledge to make intellectual commerce for black African culture. As a matter of fact, they could not even elaborate on a single thing. After 12 years of colonial cultural conditioning under urological and Arabic studies, black scholars did not have the intellectual opportunity to do so. With additional training under graduate studies in urological and Arabic studies, the notion of blackological intellectual cultural science was hidden from their conscience. Black scholars were preoccupied with the business of conducting urological and Arabic studies. For those who accepted blackology, there was gladness, happiness. They showed appreciation for an ideal whose time has come. It was the manifestation of a prophecy long awaited to be fulfilled. There was the shouts by the elders saying, "I knew it would come." There was the spiritualists saying God is always on time and is good all the time. You can take black people out of Africa, but you cannot take black African cultural knowledge out of black people. You can hide, detain, disguise, or deter black African culture, but you cannot eliminate black African culture and black people. intellectual science that resides within black African people. It is blackology. It is a talent and a gift given to them by the Creator and utilized by their ancestors in their efforts to survive. Blackologically speaking, in the West, when black scholars were desegregated and physical colonialism came to an end, they were so happy to be able to go to any school, study any field, and they were so happy to do so because they thought that was being free. But they soon found out that was not intellectual freedom at all. Freedom is a holistic phenomenon. It's in your heart, your mind, and your soul. And unless you can free that, you have been bamboozled, ran amok. We were told by the Eurological scholars that black African culture did not exist. Black people were also told that black African culture was not scientific knowledge. In the Eurological sciences, in addition to that, black people were told they could not develop such a science. Black people were trained to believe they did not have the ability to do such a thing. There was no way there could be a science in black people or their culture. Blackological research has revealed this is not so. Somewhere I read in conducting this blackological study, there is a theory in science that states in order for something to be science, it has to be true or a fact. It is a fact and truth that black African people is here, and they do have a culture, and they do have a body of knowledge. Black scholars also have tradition of ideals, philosophies, beliefs, and notions of their past, present, and the spirit of their uncompromising struggle as their cultural knowledge. This is the evidence of the existence of black intellectual cultural science. Ultimately, specifically, the purpose of this dissertation is to accomplish a number of things in the field of black African culture, particularly with respect to the innovative, authentic, monolithic, intellectual, creative genius of black African people or black knowledge. This dissertation proposes to examine black African culture, its people, their intellectual genius and creativity as the elements and ingredients of cultural science of blackology for career acquisition and institution building since January 1962 to the year 2007 in the United States. It will specifically analyze the relationship between the evolution of blackology and the assumption of Eurological and Arabic cultural supremacy. Blackologically speaking, the solution to this problem, according to Malcolm X, is not how black scholars see others, but how they see themselves. Not how Eurological scholars and others see black scholars, but how black scholars see themselves. This study will specifically analyze the relationship between the evolution and the assumption of neurological and Arabic cultural supremacy. This is a blackological research that will explore and attempt to answer the many statements and questions that present themselves to black people, such as the following. 1. The quest of black scholars to provide the service for the need, supply, and demand of the black market for autonomous intellectual studies in black African culture within the United States and globally. 2. What is the difference between W.E.B. Du Bois' 20th century theory and Dr. A.M.D. Sirleaf's 21st century theory of blackology? Dr. Du Bois said the problem of the 20th century is the problem of the color line. Dr. A.M. Sirleaf's theory is the black race, the African continent, and the ultimate necessity for the development of black cultural science, blackology, the 21st century African system of thought. Why is there only seasonal recognition and celebration of black African culture by some black scholars and black people in the United States? Number 3. Number 4. Are black scholars morally incapable of reaching up for the black knowledge that forever confronts them? Number 5. Because of the monumental achievements of the black scholars of the past, does this make for today an environment by which the black scholars of the present will be able to do greater works and develop new blackological intellectual sciences, or should they be content with theological studies? 6. Should the contemporary black scholars of today still be waiting in neurological and Arabic studies until after the completion of their high school, bachelor's, master's, and PhD degrees to begin the quest for intellectual entrepreneurship? Given all his or her labor, gifts, and talents to the already wealthy neurological studies industry with no reciprocity, or should black scholars press on with self-determination to go where no black scholar has gone before? 7. Can the black scholars of today answer a 30-year-old question by Dr. Ronald Walters, which states whether or not one believes in the possibility that there exists a body of knowledge about black life which can be disciplined and made useful in the survival and development of black people depends upon many factors. Among them are 1. A determination that such knowledge can be disciplined. 2. A determination that in such a disciplined state, the knowledge, when applied to actual problems the community faces, will be useful in the solution. Besides the ambivalence manifested by such social scientists, other causes of the dysfunction of white social science may be accounted for by 3 prime factors. 1. Ideological bias. 2. Structural bias. And 3. Methodological bias. Psychologically, as we have evolved intellectually, do we need neurological studies to define who we are? 8. Are black scholars forever under the scaffold, forever under the throne of neurological scholars and their cultural dimensions as the captives and enslavement perpetrators of their intellectual realm of black scholars' minds, or by black scholars evolving into their own autonomous intellectual body of knowledge? 9. Psychological research has revealed that the United States and the black world, scholars and white scholars, have been neurologically conditioned to believe that black scholars are inferior and white scholars are superior. The manifestation of this conditioning is that intellectually black scholars are underestimated. As far as publishing, they are devalued. And creatively, they are marginalized. In the practice of this neurological conditioning, there are no autonomous blackological, intellectual, or cultural sciences, studies, nor universities that are owned, founded, operated, produced, and maintained by black scholars in the United States educational system. 10. Are black scholars intellectually accountable and conscious, as well as morally incapable of reaching up and standing up for the black knowledge that forever confronts them through their daily struggles? 11. Who declared black people in the United States to be African American? Is this title or label the product of neurological acclimation of black people, such as the term Negro, of which in the 1965 Civil Rights Movement, Floyd McKissick and Kwame Ture declared self-determination for all black people, and that black people would define who we are, and we would be black people for now and then and forever. Should we all tell Euro-Americans it is not what you call us, but what we answer to, and we only answer to that which black people has acclaimed, affirmed, declared, and proclaimed from the spirit of the uncompromising struggle of our black African culture? 12. Should black people in the second century of the redevelopment era of black African culture concentrate solely on issues specific to their local black culture, or should they broaden their perspectives for a global and changing black African world? If so, why and why not? 13. Now that black African people are physically free, how can they then free themselves intellectually, free their hearts, minds, and souls of colonialism? Can black people continue to practice and use neurological inherent religions to free African people holistically? 14. Reparations, intellectual reparations, is a question of the day. The intellectual genius and creativity of black scholars has been exploited by neurological studies since the days of Dr. Martin Delaney. What then is the reciprocity for black?
Blackology a cultural science, coming to you from Fort Washington, Maryland, south of Washington, D.C. Our goal is to bring to you this intellectual cultural science for jobs, career, entrepreneurship. There are 205,000 schools in the black diaspora. Our job, our service, our task is to provide for black culture 615,000 career positions, teaching blackologists in this black diaspora.
Black culture is strong. Black culture is strong. It was the 19th of January, 2004. That was the day I wanted the knowledge of black culture even more. I never knew much about it. Most I heard was bad things shouted. I never studied it a lot. All I knew was Black History Month in school. That was all I got. Blackologists, I'm depending on you to tell me the truth. Blackologists held up their head and said, son, black culture is strong. And how it was taken from us is well known. Black culture is strong. The knowledge of self is the greatest knowledge of all. Well. And hey, blackologists, is it true what they say? Black people don't care about their culture today. And blackologists, there's some bad talk going around the world saying that black people know about 3-4 cultures and practice no black culture in their life. And that ain't right. I heard black folks talking about doing some multicultural teaching talking about quoting urological scholars and some skin bleaching, dealing in cultural denial, mimicking, and assimilation seeking. The blackologists say black culture is strong, and how it was taken from us is well known. Black culture is strong, and how it was taken from us is well known. Black culture is strong. Wherever you find it, it is at home. Black culture is strong. Wherever you find it, it is at home. Black culture is strong. Wherever you find it, it is at home. That's what they say. Hey, blackologists, I heard black scholars do not have their own intellectual trade. Is that why there's very little black culture displayed? Other cultures say black people will underestimate, devalue, and marginalize their culture to pay their bills. Some people say black people don't have any will. Some folks say black people are not much on thinking. They spend much of their time emulating and singing. Blackologists, I'm depending on you to tell me the truth. Blackologist held up his head and said, black culture is strong, and how it was taken from us is well known. Well. Black culture is strong. Wherever you find it, it is at home. Black culture is strong. Wherever you find it, it is at home. I'd say black culture is strong. Yes, it is. I tell you this truth. Black culture is strong. We built gigantic buildings to kiss the sky. We built gargantuan bridges to connect the seas. With our spaceships, we carve highways into the stratosphere. With our submarines, we discover oceanic depths. With our airplanes, we place time in chains. With our computers, we created the information highway. Even though we did all of that, I can see black children all over the world saying, culturally, in my education, I was hungry and you fed me not. Black culture is strong. Wherever you find it, it is at home. This is the truth. You can take black people out of their culture, but you cannot take black culture out of black people. Black culture is strong. This is the truth. The intellectual, cultural science of blackology. Black culture is strong. Wherever you find it, it is at home. This is the truth. What is blackology? Blackology is the evolution of black African people and their culture, their cultural knowledge. Black African creative genius as an intellectual cultural science. Black African cultural science education. That is what blackology is. The way of blackology. If I speak in the languages of other cultures and assimilate